Welcome back to Holistic Healing Association. I'm Erin Darcy. I'm certified in embodied processing and clinical hypnosis. Today, I have with me Kae-Lynn, who owns Embodied Truth. And would you like to tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on here, Erin. It is a true honor to get to share my story with you and all of your listeners and viewers. I'm very excited. I'm not going to tell you every detail of my story because I just feel like I would be trauma dumping, to be honest. So I have lived on this planet for 31 very short years, but I've lived a very big and full life within those years. Um, I come from a background of a lot of trauma, dissociation, and really, really losing myself while loving other people. I had three primary caregivers, and I felt like I was always stuck in the middle, trying to balance everyone's emotions, trying to be the glue that holds everyone together. And a lot of people relied and depended on me at a very young age. And I learned that that's how you get love and belonging and safety and all of the things. And I also learned that that kind of followed me through my adult life and my careers. I really got my self worth from helping others. So that's a little bit of a background. I'm originally from Canada. I moved to New Zealand 3 years ago, which, as you can imagine, for a people pleaser, that was a huge step. And that came with a lot of shame and guilt. Um, but 3 years in now, I can say that I'm really learning. Um, I guess I'm really learning what is true to me and who I authentically am. And so I think in our conversation, this is really going to come up a lot. I think the theme around our discussion today, I really hope what your viewers can take from this is the benefits of living an authentic life true to you, and the a little bit of how I've gotten to this point. Um, like you said, I did just launch a business called Embodied Truth, and my tagline is trust your body, live your truth. And that has been a life changer for me, is getting into somatics and really learning the difference between my conditioning, my trauma, all of those things, and what is actually true to me, what beliefs actually I believe, what have been enforced on me. So yeah, that's where my business came from, is this place of like embodied knowing that sometimes people just need time and space to listen to the answers that they already have within themselves. And that can be done by trusting your body. So that's a bit about me.
That's perfect. And I love the name because in embodied sessions, embodied processing sessions, your body, you can hear a lot, looking
Yeah.
internally in, right?
Yeah.
And you can get the answers.
Yeah. And I also teach a dance fitness class too. And it's crazy to me how disconnected we are from our bodies. And I think that's from like, body shaming and having to look a certain way and all of the things. Like you kind of get angry with your body, or if you don't fit the mold, you, yeah, you start to disassociate from your body. And it's really sad to see, because that is our inner wisdom. Like all of the symptoms and things that we feel and things that happen and things that manifest in our body are all clues. And if you're not listening to that, you're just like kind of frolicking in this world, not knowing what's going on with you as an individual. And yeah, I'm very passionate about getting people connected back to their bodies, because when you can live in harmony with your body, that is just magic.
Okay. Yep, I agree. Because the body can tell you so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how does it feel in the body when you dissociate?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that this is probably there might be some similarities between this for people, but for me personally, when it feels like I dissociate, like it's like system shutdown. I am just not there. I'm not present. I don't really know where I go, but I'm just like, too much. System shut down. And I feel distant. I feel very distant when I experience disassociation. And you know what's interesting is I've learned I know trauma so well, but what I have noticed is I also dissociate when joy and love and happiness is too much. Um, so this has been part of my journey now is building the capacity to hold the good stuff because I've been so good at holding I don't want to say bad, there's no good and bad, but all of those like heavier emotions and all that trauma, I've been so good at holding that. But now I'm like, how do I build my capacity to hold this love and joy? And I just want to give you a quick example here is um my embodied practitioner, Liz, which has been on the show or on your you've
We just had
interviewed
her
her.
on, what, a few weeks
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, she has helped me so much with this because I went to her and I said, Liz, listen, I'm in this stage in my relationship where I know like engagement and marriage is on the cards. I love this man. There's no doubt in my mind that I want to spend the rest of my life with him. But when I think about him getting down on one knee or us getting married, like my whole system is like, no. And then we got into an embodied processing session where I realized that I was carrying so many beliefs around marriage that was not mine. Like my parents got divorced when I was 8, and um, I wouldn't say that that was traumatic because I say this a lot to people when they're like, "Oh, we're staying because of the kids," and I think, please do not like my world was turned upside down when my parents got divorced, but it was also the right side up. Like they were so toxic and yes, my world looked completely different, but I had two parents that weren't toxic 24/7. You
Hmm.
know, I had some space. And so I uh where was I going? Oh, yeah. So we got into my beliefs, we got into that trauma, we got back to that little girl that was like, marriage is bad. Like, look, it's caused so much, like, people aren't meant to come together. And then I had lots of other relationships in my life where people were married but shouldn't have been, and all of this stuff. So, marriage equaled fear. And
Hmm.
so we were able to sit with that. We were able to, like, feel all of the feels that came up, and then I was able to like envision my partner proposing to me by the end of it without that shutdown or without that panic response, that automatic response. And so that was really, really cool. And when he did propose to me, I did not dissociate. I did not shut
Oh,
down.
perfect.
And I was like, what is this? Like when you get to know your nervous system and when you get to work through the beliefs that are no longer yours, like I think that you are then able to really sit. And there was some discomfort. I'm not going to lie. There was some discomfort in like, this is a lot. Like I'm so in love with this man. And this is like so perfect. But I showed up in a way that I wanted to show up, not in a survival mode, which was really cool.
That is really cool, especially in that
Mm-hmm.
moment.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel
Yeah.
peace about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. I think that's a common fear when when you come from a parents that have been divorced, that not all the time, but it can happen that children are afraid to get married because there are so many broken marriages
Mhm.
and so many hurting people in the world.
Mhm.
And you experience that as a child, and
Yeah.
it can have a empower like a huge impact on you, right?
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good.
Yeah. I will say one more thing before we move on is that fear did serve me though. That fear did
Good
serve
protect
me
you.
because it did. Um, and that's what I love about this is like when you can look back on these things without anger and just be like, oh wow, that had a purpose. Because I was actually in a 7-year relationship where I completely lost myself and it was extremely toxic. And I think I kind of fell into the pattern that I knew.
Hmm.
And and everyone was like, when are you guys getting married, blah 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 blah, and it kind of felt like that was the next step, but I was just like, absolutely not. Like, I've seen what marriage can do to people, I'm not going there. And thank God, because that was not my person, you know and I think that if I had a storybook version of marriage, I might have ended up in a relationship that was not for me. So
Yes.
I do think that when you can look back on your childhood trauma, or you can look back on these things and be like, ah, cool. That did serve me, but now it's no longer serving me. So we need to let it go.
That makes sense. Actually, before you said that, I was not going to share, but I'm going to share it now because it was going through in my mind. I had an annulment in the Catholic Church. I'm not sure
Mm.
if you know what that is. It's when the church will say the marriage is not valid. Um,
Oh,
mhm. And I had no fear of getting married because my parents are best friends and they've been married 48 years. And I dated for someone for 2 years, did not live with them before we were married. And 6 weeks in, he became verbally abusive. So I have a 4-year-old child and she lives with me full time. Um, but I entered it into the marriage very innocent, very trusting, and just no clue, right?
yeah,
And he had come from a very toxic, abusive home life, who they needed a lot of healing. Yes, so you were saying that protected you, and I'm like, yep, yeah,
yeah,
because it's like I experienced the opposite, but um, did not enter into a marriage that was the right person.
yeah. Yeah, and good for you for realizing that. And then I also think, yeah, I think that's a very, very brave decision that you made as well, right? Like to get out of that
Well,
situation
it
because
wasn't going to be a healthy environment for a child to grow up in.
no,
Yeah,
no,
like not
no,
abuse. I won't tolerate abuse with a child in the house. I mean,
yeah.
without a child in the house, I don't tolerate it, but
Hmm.
especially without a child in the house.
Yeah. And I do think that, I think this will be a nice segue into what I want to talk about with like our external pressures of the world. Like you could have been like, oh, well, I should just stay in this marriage because it's the father, and like, we're married and it's a commitment, and it's like, and I think religion also, it's like you made this promise to God and all of the things. There's so many pressures that can make people want to stay in a
Hmm.
life that does not serve them, right? And I think a lot of people that do experience abuse is like they have to lie to themselves to stay in that because they're too scared to either leave, or they're too scared of what other people will think. And that was my case with this 7-year relationship. Is like, we weren't married, we don't have kids, but it was like our lives were together. We had all of the same friends. We lived in a small community, and I was like, there is no way I can leave. And I had never been on my own before this. Like, I I'd always lived with someone, and we got a house together and all of the things, and I followed this equation that was going to equal happiness. I
Mm.
went to school, got the career, got the partner, got the house, and I was like, we're going to have kids and we're going to get married and all of the things. And, we have wonderful friends and everything, right? There's so many
Exactly.
societal
Same here.
pressures, yeah, that kept me in there. And then you do see these little red flags, and you're like, nope, that doesn't exist. Ignore, 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 because we are clouded, and I'm sure there was love there and all of the things, but um, it really keeps us stuck. And then what ends up happening is we hit our breaking point. All of those symptoms that I talked about start arising. We don't understand why we're getting sick. We don't understand why all of these things are coming up. And we keep shoving it down until we can't anymore. And I remember this time, like, um, Elizabeth Gilbert actually says, I think it's her. She's like, the bathroom floor moments. We've all had one of those bathroom floor moments when you're like, I cannot continue going on like this, but I also can't imagine what it would be like out of this, you know? And then you're really faced with this choice of being like, what do I do? And both options seem awful.
Mhm.
And you have to make a choice. And I I think that that's really what life comes down to is, unfortunately, you live your life for others or you live it for yourself. And that choice is yours. And I think every single person on this planet comes to a crossroads sometime in their life where they're like, do I choose me or do I choose suffering in this hell that I've accidentally created? And both choices are very, very hard. And I decided, this sounds so silly, but my deciding factor was like, if I won a bunch of money, if someone just gave me a yacht, would I want him on my yacht? No. Okay.
Well, that's a good
So
question.
it's simple, isn't it? And I'm like, who would you invite on your yacht? Who would you invite? Who would you want to be stuck on a boat with, celebrating? Who would you want there? And it was not him. And I was like, I am staying out of safe or out of security. Like, I am staying out of security. And
Okay.
um, I just realized that um, I I actually heard this. I think it's like the top 5 regrets of the dying. And one of them was like they wish they had lived a life for them. And I thought, there's no way I'm getting to my deathbed and having regrets. I just won't do it.
No.
And so I think what I was trying to say is you have to choose your heart. You have to choose your heart. And either you choose people pleasing for the rest of your life or you choose you. And both choices are hard, but I would rather choose the hard choice that leads me to a fulfilling and authentic life than waking up every morning, looking myself in the mirror and being like, who are you? Where did she go? Like, this isn't me, you know? And so I chose to leave, and I had convinced myself that I would lose everything, all my friends and everything. And you know what happened? I did lose some friends, but the good ones stayed. And that's the cool thing about choosing yourself and being in alignment and being in your authenticity is like, the people and opportunities and things that are not meant for you, they will fall off, which causes a grieving process, but it also makes space for what is meant to be. And when I wake up in the morning and I can look myself in the eyes and feel peace, I'm like, there she is. This is good. This is good. And I'd say if there is anyone in a place of their life where they're like, what? I know that my reality isn't what I want, but I don't know what to do. My advice would be, this is what I did, is start small. I started, I knew I couldn't live like this and I knew I couldn't leave was my reality, is how I
Okay.
felt. So I just started small. I was so dissociated. I was so on autopilot that driving to work a different way helped me. That's it. That's all I did is I started to change my habits in very small ways. And by driving to work a different way, it made me notice things. It made me pay attention. And I'm not saying that like this is going to heal everyone, but
No.
I'm just saying you have to listen to those inner whispers that are there, and they will continue to lead you to the next best thing. I started driving to work a different way. And before I knew it, this house that my nana looked after for our family friends, their renters just up and left out of nowhere. And she's like, I got to find a renter. I said, it's me. I'm going to go there. Like opportunities just kept on aligning, and I was scared shitless. And I was like, I'm going to go there. And she said to me, Kae-Lynn, you cannot. You've already invested 7 years. Like it's just no. And I'm like, what the? But her level of understanding, right? And I just
Mm.
thought, I've already invested 7 years of my life, and I am not investing anymore because it doesn't feel right. And so I did. I moved in. I had literally nothing, and things just kept on showing up. Like people would show up with furniture, and it's just like it's crazy how things will just flow when you do the next best thing for you. And what that is for you, I can't tell you, but people like you will find out as soon as you just start trusting that little intuition.
And it's taking small steps at a time.
Small steps. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. I know for me, with my ex, we separated twice. The first time it was, I was in fetal position, crying on the ground, and I probably cried for 5 to 6 months straight. And he'd walk past me and say, "I thought I married a tough athlete," um, and things like that, or toughen up. And I was crying too because my faith is very important to me, and my vow to God is very important. And my friend came over on my birthday and saw Minor, how he was treating me. And the next day she said, "We are going to drive you to a priest and you're going to talk to him." And we drove to a friend of mine, and he said, "You need to lock the doors and not let him back in." Um, and I talked to probably over the period of time about mostly priests, a couple nuns, about 10. And they all said, one said, "Listen to your father." And the others basically all said, "You need to leave." And the one said, "Yes, I don't know enough about the situation, but listen to your dad." Um, the second time, he went through a lot of counseling and got a lot of help. The professionals, two professionals, a psychologist and psychotherapist, both said he's ready to move back in. He moved back in. I became pregnant. And the third trimester, he started saying every week he was going to leave. Uh, about 6 months into after she was born, he started to say some mean things, and I just didn't feel safe. My nervous system was full of anxiety, and I asked him to leave, and ended on good terms. Like we get along. Uh, He's not a bad person. He's a person that needs a lot of help and healing.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I did that. There was no hate when I asked
Mm,
him to leave. It was, "This is not happening under my daughter's roof."
yeah.
So the first time I did it for myself. The second time I did it for my daughter.
Yeah. Good for you. Wow.
So, but there's a lot, and it, like talk if you're saying shame, the comments I've received and the looks I've received,
Mm-hmm.
judgment, and a lot. I felt a lot of shame because people did not know, and they just saw this girl who was very traditional her whole life, all of a sudden is a single mom walking around
Mm-hmm.
with a 6-month-old baby. So
Yeah.
it was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a quote that got me through that stage of my life. Obviously, I wasn't a single mom, but like, what will people think? And to go move through that shame and all of the things that are projected on you. And it was the opinions of others is none of your business. And I clung on to that because I'm like, you know, those people that were throwing shade your way and judging you for your choices, that is a projection. That is their stuff. That's not yours.
I
The
remember a
guilt,
practitioner telling me that actually. Mhm.
yeah, the guilt, the shame, none of that is yours. And you can go to bed knowing you did the right thing, and that's gold. Because the other part that really changed my perspective is like, you are going to be with you for the rest of your life. That is the
Mhm.
most important relationship. Like, of course, we can love our children and love our partners and love our friends and all of those things, but like, who are you living for? You know, like, who is actually going to be on at your deathbed? You.
Well,
That's
yeah,
your one guarantee. That's it.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Like, of course there might be other people and that's an added bonus, but if all you do is like pour into other people and not yourself, you know, that's it's and that's the thing is like, you you made the right choice for you. You made the right choice for your daughter, and those people still shamed you. And if
I
you
didn't
stay,
know. And but
hey,
learning experience for me, big
yeah,
learning experience. And
yeah,
especially joining the EP community and sitting down and listening to people because it really I opened my eyes
mm-hmm.
a lot and expanded me a lot to learn a lot and how
Yeah,
judgment is so bad. And
oh,
I
so
believe I was judging in the
yeah,
past and I wasn't even aware of it. And so I
yeah,
think sometimes that can happen too. People aren't even aware of it because they just think it's facts, but it's not
yeah,
necessarily facts.
yeah. I I've had a few situations in my life where I feel like I judged people, but then was made to go through the similar situations as them, and my whole perspective has changed, on certain topics. And I think that that's, you being in a faith community, it's like divorce. There's stigma around
Mhm.
divorce, right? And there's probably a lot of people judging people for getting a divorce, but when you go through that yourself and realize that sometimes we're attracted to different people and sometimes it takes them a long time to show their true colors, it's like, oh, maybe there's actually not room for judgment here. Like,
Yes,
I and I
it's
think it
yes.
I think it all comes from lived experience and everyone's different perceptions.
Mhm.
um, and I think how brave of you to do that when you were viewed as a very traditional person, and you take your faith very seriously and stuff, but you're still able to make that choice that was right for you and your daughter. Like, that's very good. And it's so nice that you can still have like love and understanding for your part, or for your
X.
ex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. That's good.
So
That's hard.
I mean, that's how I received a lot of my healing too, was understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying all of the choices he made was not trauma, but there was enough, and there was understanding, and then I was able to forgive. And then, and that doesn't mean I just let down all the boundaries, but I was able to forgive, and that brought a lot of healing. Still, I needed a lot more healing besides that, but it was a big part of it. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, it was such a learning experience too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
And I want to touch on your, how you understood his behavior, but you didn't excuse it. That's a big thing. You know what I
No,
mean? Like,
it's not
yeah,
okay what he did.
yeah,
I
yeah,
desperately wanted to know why, because
yeah.
that's how my mind works. Like, why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but doesn't mean it's okay. Does it
Yeah.
mean he's a horrible person? No. Does it mean I should put up with it? No. Does it mean other women or anyone who's being abused should put up with it because the person has trauma? No. Right? And that's where boundaries are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you've really come to this place of like understanding and compassion, but still respecting yourself. And that's really cool.
Well, it's keeping yourself safe at the same time,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, over the years, like when you keep on seeing the same patterns happen and happen, and there's no real remorse on his end, or just like more so excuses, it's not going to
Yeah,
change, right?
exactly.
If somebody's still excusing the behavior or denying it.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. And with forgiveness, forgiveness is a tricky one. I've had to work with a close family member of mine with forgiveness, and it's hard. It's like, how do you have loving boundaries while respecting yourself and all of the things? And I always wanted to know why is she this way? Why did she treat me like this? Why? And I read this, and I've always wanted her to be accountable. I'm like, you need to be accountable. You need to admit everything bad you've done to me. And I was just in this very angry place. And I read this thing where it says, if a poisonous snake bites you, you don't and go hunting down to that poisonous snake and ask, why did you bite me? You just get the poison out. Like,
see, that's
and I was
exactly
like,
what I did.
oh,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Because
And
my mind works, why? Why? Why?
yeah,
Why? Why is this? Why
yeah.
is this? And so, like, we went to probably 5 psychotherapists and psychologists and a psychiatrist. No, 7.
Mm,
And I sent him for a 20-hour psychological evaluation. So
mm-hmm,
I really wanted to know why, because before we got married, he was very calm, easygoing, kind. And I said, none of this makes sense.
yeah.
Calm, it was trauma. He was emotionally numb. He does not recognize his emotions. And he has not had any real healing. And he hadn't done one therapy session before he moved in to my house.
Mm,
And had no awareness. And so when he had no awareness and he went for help, but it didn't work. Um, Along the way you can forgive, but it doesn't take like it can take time.
mm-hmm, yeah.
So yeah, but that doesn't mean it doesn't when you forgive doesn't mean you're saying it's okay. It's
Yeah.
like you can forgive for yourself too,
Yes.
right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. And I learned that. I definitely learned that lesson because I was so angry and I was like, she must suffer. And everything I was doing wasn't making her suffer, it was making me suffer. And exactly what you said. I was stuck in that cage. And you have to forgive for yourself. Not that you agree with their behavior, but you have to like learn to let it go because I think if you don't, you always stay the victim and you're always stuck in those like repetitive loop patterns like why me, why is this happening, blah 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 blah. And where you need to just change your focus is like, how do I get this poison out of my body? How do I
Hmm.
get this poison out?
How do I heal?
And
Right?
yeah, how do I
And
heal?
it's like feeling into the anger. That's one of the first steps
Yes.
sometimes is feel into the anger. And under the anger is normally hurt. And it's processing your emotions, and that can take time.
Yeah, because anger is something that us women can't, we're not allowed to
We're
be
not allowed.
angry. We can't express it. And exactly what you said, like when I had to sit with this relationship in my life, is like I was so angry because I had expectations of how this person should show up in my life. And they weren't big expectations, but she's never been able to meet them. And she's just done so many hurtful things to me. And so it's really like, yeah, how do you sit with that? And how do you grieve the person you thought would be more to you
Hmm.
when their capacity is not there? And you have to sit with that anger, you have to sit with that frustration, you have to sit with that sadness and that grief and layers and layers and layers of it.
And process it, right? And allow yourself to feel it because that's the
Mm-hmm.
only way to heal
Yeah.
is allowing yourself processing it. and being curious about it
Mm-hmm.
and not pushing it down, not pushing it away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you trust your path? How do you trust your inner guide?
Oh, such a good question. I had this analogy the other day, actually. So I think everyone talks about their inner guide or their soul or their higher power or whatever you want to call it. Like this, like, I think we all have this innate feeling like there's a path that we have that, like, how do I live this life? Basically, we all want to have a guide map of how to live this life. And it's been very gray and rainy here in New Zealand. And I just um, looked up at the sky and I thought, just because I can't see the sun doesn't mean it's there or it's not there, right? Just because I can't see the sun doesn't mean it's not there. And I thought this is the same as our inner knowing. Like sometimes it's not clear. Sometimes we can't see it because it's so clouded by like trauma and other people's opinions and other people's beliefs, and we're so busy with life, and it kind of just like gets clouded, dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. And then we have those bathroom floor moments or those times when we look in the mirror and you're like, who am I? What am I doing in this life? Like, what is my purpose? Like, how do I navigate this life? And I think that it's all about sitting with the clouds. As I'm saying this, the sun is coming out.
Oh,
Check
that's
out how
nice.
much brighter it is. Yeah, the sun
Nice.
is finally.
We're it's getting
Yeah,
darker in Canada. Well, not
I'm
yet,
like,
but it seems dark.
yeah, I'm like, the clouds are moving. That's so crazy. Anyway, so you have to sit with your clouds. You have to get curious. And I am, and I think you can do this in so many different ways. But the truth of it is your truth is still there. Even if you can't see it and even if it's not clear to you, you can still connect with it. And all of the answers you seek are in the silence you avoid. So I think the best piece of advice I can give you is sit with yourself. Know that that truth is still within you. It's just a bit cloudy. And when those clouds become too much, seek professional help. And what I mean by professional help is wherever you are guided to go. You know, for you it was like you sat with the priest, you sat with the like some nuns, and for me it was very much like I sat with some energy workers, and I sat with some, like, we all find different things. We are all called to different things because it is your journey and you cannot get this wrong. Like, you really can't. Sometimes we get on a little detour and we forget that we're um, supposed to be clearing some clouds, but you can't get it wrong. And that inner knowing, that true self of you is always there.
Hmm.
Um, it's always there. Like, just sometimes the whispers get a little bit quieter, and that's when you know you need some assistance. And trust who you are told to. Like, if you
Hmm.
go on someone's website and you're like, wow, there's just something about them, like I feel very connected, beautiful, book a session. You know, you go to someone, say your best friend's like, oh my god, this person changed my life, you have to go see them. And you get on their website and you're like, I don't think I do. Trust that.
Trust your gut.
Like, trust your gut, because I did this for so many years. I was in this cycle of like, I'd go to webinars, I'd go to workshops, I'd go to retreats, and I'd be like, yeah, woo, let's go. And then I'd completely fall off the bandwagon and I think that I was broken. But that healing modality or that advice just wasn't actually meant for me. So trust you, because that inner truth is always there. And when you bring things in, and if they feel good, trust that. If you bring something in, like say something I said to you, you're like, I don't really think that that's right. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. It's just not right for you. And that's okay. And I think also when you're on this healing journey, you're going to outgrow people. You're going to outgrow your mentors. You're going to outgrow your therapist, you're going to outgrow people. Like people are put in our lives for a season, reason, or a lifetime. That's just the truth. And some people really are, maybe this season you're working on forgiveness. So you're going to be more attracted to those people that embody forgiveness, that have worked through forgiveness. And then once you've worked through some forgiveness, you're like, okay, thank you for your time. Moving on. I
Mhm.
think that, I think my answer to this question is trust you. Like
I
that
think so.
inner knowing, that inner truth is always there, just like the sun. It's
And
always there.
if there's people you trust, you really trust, I almost would go personally, I'd rather go to someone I really trust than after the experiences I've had with psychologists or
Yes.
professionals I've been to. Um, because they're there for an hour. You don't know what their life is like. You don't know them. And you don't know if they have experience in the area you're even asking them about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whereas if you can go to someone who has what you want, so say a good marriage, you go to a person who has a good marriage, and that
Yes.
you trust and that you see, okay, I can trust this person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, mhm. And it's also when we're trusting, listening, is this trauma
Mm-hmm.
speaking, or is this my inner self, right? Is this my gut? Because often our triggers can talk to us. And I've experienced this for sure. And you think, yeah, that's the right choice. But it's actually your trauma, right? Your mind can play many tricks with you. So don't react until um, you're in a calm state. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like for reasoning, it's listening to your emotions and your mind and bringing them together, pausing, waiting. To me, I would bring it to prayer then, reflecting. And my best friend gave me advice. She's a good, wise person. She said, ask again. So
Mm-hmm.
don't just say, this is what I think it is. Say, am I hearing you right? Because I am a person who over the years have had a hard time with discernment. So she's always said, ask again. Don't just say, yeah, this is what I think. Ask again, right? Double check. So if that's with God or if that's with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you think something is right, take another pause and listen again.
Yeah. And um, yeah, I love all of that. And thank you for bringing up like, is this trauma or is this intuition? Because I hear what you're saying. And to be honest, I had the complete opposite experience where I had intuition. I knew, like, let's take my dating life for an example. When I would meet someone, I would know exactly how it was going to end. Like, I could already see that. And I was just like, oh no, this is my trauma speaking. Like, give this person a try, give this person a chance. Da 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 da. Like, you're broken. You have this long history of trust issues. Da 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 da. And I would not trust my intuition. And every single time, it ended the way that I thought it was going to end. And I didn't know this, but when I went back in my journal, like I dated this one guy and he always said the phrase of like, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. And that triggered me for some reason. And I remember when we first met, I wrote that down. I don't like that he says you can't put all your eggs in one basket. And we dated for a year and I was like, oh my, this guy's so amazing. Da 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 da. Like this is it. This is great. And then I found out that he was on Tinder the whole time and talking to other
Oh,
women. And
wow.
I was like, I freaking knew it. Like I knew that he
Yeah.
could not just be faithful to me.
Yeah.
But there was no signs while we were dating. Like he was just perfect. And and so I was like, no, like that shouldn't trigger you. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Like don't let it get to you. And I just knew. And so I think that deciding between, or that trusting, like, is this judgment or is this intuition? I love that you're like, ask again, really ask for that clarity, really sit with yourself, because I think it can go both ways. I think sometimes we can convince ourselves, like, it's such a fine line. And the more that you get curious and the more that you get honest with yourself and the more that you clear those clouds and sit with professionals or friends or people that can keep you accountable or see the whole picture, the more it will become clear to you. Like, I think I'm in the place right now where I'm like, sit with myself. Ooh, this is actually trauma. This is
Mm.
actually a trigger. I need to go to an EP session. I need to work through this. It's stuck in my body. It's stuck in my nervous system. Let's release it. And then there's other ways where I'm like, this is actually intuition and I need to trust it. So I'm getting better at trying to like navigate that, but it is a practice.
I agree. Like I know too, and it's really important who you go to, because even if they're your
Yes.
best friend, if they don't have the life experience,
Mm-hmm.
they can't be giving you the proper advice. Like I know when I was dating my ex, he told me early on he loved me,
Mm.
and my gut reaction, I verbally said, "No, you don't. You don't know me well enough."
Yeah.
And another time, we weren't even dating yet, and I was on my way to Montreal, and he texted me, and he said, "What church do you go to? Because I want to go there." And my friends were like, "That's amazing," and I'm like, "Is it?"
Mm-hmm.
But both times, I went to my friends who were very innocent girls and not a lot
Mm-hmm.
of life experience. And they were
Yes.
all like, "Oh, it's amazing."
Mm-hmm.
But that was my intuition saying, "Wait, wait, pause, stop." But I didn't trust my gut. So I trusted my friends who had the best of intentions, but didn't have the life experience to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's good to have a very diverse group of friends. But
Yes.
I know my
Yes.
friend who I didn't go to advice for had a lot more life experience. And after we got married and I phoned her crying, she said, "I knew it. You should have talked to me before you got married because I saw something coming."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, and had like a lot more life experience. And she,
Mm-hmm.
that's what it was. So
Yeah.
everyone's different. But yeah, it's sometimes you want to go to those friends who have a lot more life experience and maybe have what you want,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And I find myself, I do have a very diverse group of friends, which is great. And I find myself when I'm making a bad choice and I know I'm making a bad choice, but I want to be validated in it, I go to like my fun friends. I'm like, so I'm thinking about this. And they're like, oh yeah, you go, you go, girl, like do it. And then there's like two of my very best friends where I'm like, if I go to them, I know they're gonna be like, pull your head out of your ass. You know that's stupid.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm not gonna talk to them until after I make this decision.
Okay.
But that's like, that is what I want to say about this is we are so trained to outsource our knowing. Like, we are so trained to trust people with letters behind their names. We're so trained to trust doctors and trust the people around us and trust our parents and trust other people. Nobody like trains us or teaches us or guides us how to trust ourselves. So outsourcing is so common, but there's so many people where they're like, it's like I said before, it is your life. So even though um I would just encourage people to pause. Like, anything that happens in your life, pause and sit with yourself first. Because there's been many a times where a same similar situation with you, like there's been many a times where I'm sitting and I'm like, this isn't right. This doesn't feel right. And then I go out of myself and I say, like, this is what's going on. And they're like, oh, you're worrying too much. Like, it's totally fine. This person
But they're
seems so
not
nice.
there in the moment.
It's not their life. Number one, they are not in your shoes. And number two, of course they have the best intentions, but they are not with that other person. They're not getting the vibes. They're not getting like the true essence of the situation. And they are talking from their perspective, their limited perspective, and it's not their life. And other times I've went to my friends or professionals and I'm like, that's what I needed. That was the piece that I needed. So I'd say don't avoid doing that. I think sometimes people can check us outside of ourselves, which is great, but maybe hit pause to reflect and be true to yourself of how you're feeling about the situation, because we can be so easily manipulated. And it's
I
not
know
like
manipulation
people,
is huge.
yeah, and it's not
Yeah.
like people have that intention. Like when you go to your friends, they're not like, this
Oh
is a
no,
chance to
everyone has the
manipulate
best
you.
of, most people have a good intention. Like if you're going to
Yeah.
friends or family for advice, they're trying to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for sure. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's people out there that will also try and manipulate you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? That
There's
doesn't
even
mean
like,
it's a friend or family,
mm-hmm.
but you just, they're out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
What is one daily somatic ritual
Oh,
to strengthen self-trust over time?
okay. One daily. Okay. So again, this is going to be different for everyone, but to strengthen that self-trust, I think you have to go where you feel the most connected to yourself. So, for me, dancing. I try to dance every day. Like I wake up, I put the music on. That doesn't happen every day because some days I feel like shit and I'm like, I'd rather just not dance. So I try to do one small thing a day. So from my list for me individually, it would be dance, breathe, move, drink some water. Some days I only have the capacity to get up and drink some water. Water before coffee. That's an act of self-love. That's an act of like, okay, I'm connecting with myself. I'm taking a mindful moment. I'm feeling the water in my mouth. Like nothing has to be profound. And my thing that I'd like to say is nothing should feel like a performance. You know, if you're following someone and they're like, okay, so we do movement for 10 minutes, we do journaling for 10 minutes, you must read for 10 minutes, da 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 da. Don't make it feel like a performance. And if it doesn't feel right for you, it's not for you. But there's also a fine line between that, is because sometimes when we're building our capacity, when we're stretching our capacity, when we're getting out of our comfort zone, it's going to feel uncomfortable. Like waking up and dancing was not my norm. I had to slowly get into that. So really pay attention to the things that feel right for you, and you'll feel it in your body, and the things that feel wrong for you, and honor that. And then to build that self-trust is just being honest with yourself. Like I don't know if
That's a good
there's a
answer.
daily, yeah, yeah, just being honest, like finding moments where you can be honest. And an exercise that I started doing recently is I just on the top of a piece of paper, I say, what is the truth? And I write, the truth is, I'm really sad today. The truth is, da 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 da. And I just spend a few minutes with being honest with myself, not like self-love bullshit. Like it's like very like honesty. Like I know that you know what I'm trying to say is like, it's
No,
just like
yes, it's being honest with
sometimes,
yourself because
yeah,
we're not
sometimes,
always honest with ourselves.
no, because we're so trained that like it's all about sunshine and rainbows. And if you just lean into some gratitude and if you just drink your water and you go for your mental health walk, everything will be fine. But guess what? It's not. It's not fine because your body's not fine. Your nervous system isn't fine. And the thing is when you give yourself some time to tell the freaking truth, that's therapeutic. That's building trust. Because if it's like when you look at a relationship, if someone kept on telling you, oh, you're fine, let's go, let's go, let's go, you're not going to trust that person. But if someone actually holds space for you and is like, tell me your truth, what is actually going on, I have space for you, I can listen, that is going to be a very trusting relationship. So think about yourself as like two people, like you're having a relationship with yourself, and being honest and holding space for how you actually feel is going to continue to build that trust. Being honest with like, oh, I have a committee meeting today, I don't want to go, like then don't go. Like it's like forcing your person you love to be like, I don't care that you don't want to go, you have to go. Like no, we don't treat people like that. Like treat yourself how you treat people. Look at yourself with that relationship, and if you want to build trust with yourself, Look at how you build trust in relationships. You're honest, you have communication, you have love, you have respect. Like bring that into yourself, bring that inwards and build that relationship.
And I think too, for parents at home, listening to your children too, to what they're saying. Don't just assume whatever they're saying that you know best always. Listen to your
Mm-hmm.
child. I know
Mm-hmm.
my child the other day just said, and she never normally talks like this. She just said, I don't like that person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say who, but someone just said, sure you do. And I said, no, no, no.
Mm-mm.
Let's get curious here.
Yes.
Why, why are you saying this? Why don't you like this person? How do you feel about it? What's happening in your body? Start to become curious. Don't just shut them down and say, of course you like them. They're great. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think that the person who they were saying is great and they're great with her. But why are you saying this? That's the thing. Just get curious about it, right? Because they're not saying it for no reason at all. They're saying it for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So just let them listen and let them talk. Let them share.
And the
And how
same thing, oh,
it,
and the same thing goes for you. How many times do we shut ourselves down? Like, oh no, you do like going to this committee meeting. You have to go to this committee meeting. What will other people think? Like it's you're so great because you volunteered, da 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 da. Like, no, get curious. Why don't you want to go? Like, don't shut yourself down and sit with yourself. Like, what is it about this person that you don't like? What is it about this thing that you don't like? What is it about this?
get
Like
curious.
get curious and get honest with yourself.
And how does intergenerational trauma and cultural conditioning, like we've discussed, affect how we hear our inner guide?
I just want to say one thing about generational trauma, and I believe that I am the cycle breaker of my family. And I just want to hold space for the people that are the cycle breakers of their family because it's a very I've been you are healing things that are not yours. And that can come with a lot of frustration. Like I have spent so much time and energy sitting in sessions being like, that is that is not mine. But we have to someone in your family has to take the responsibility of breaking the cycles. And fortunately, unfortunately, that was me. That is me. And it gets very frustrating. It can feel very lonely. You can feel very much a lot of anger and and you work through all of these things and then you start navigating like what beliefs are yours and what aren't and all of the things and things become clearer. But um on top of that, like and then eventually you get to this happy authentic life that's like true to you, but then you still feel so much shame and guilt for advancing and your family's still here. And so then you create like a disconnect and you're like proud of yourself, but you also are like, oh no, like I just want them to be up here with me. And I think the thing that I can say about that is guilt and shame is not yours to feel. It is not yours. It is not yours. It is a projection. So if you are the cycle breaker of your family and you've had to put up tough boundaries or you've had to cut people out of your life and you still feel that shame or your guilt and all of the things and societal conditionings like you have to teach you have to talk to your parents and like how dare you and all of the things like if you are truly living in alignment with you and it's caused discomfort, um just know I see you. Like I feel that and there is a lot of layers of emotions that come with that, but to know that the cycle ends with you, that's so empowering. That is like I think that's some of the most courageous work that we can do.
I know that in every family, there's cycles that need to be broken.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how healthy the family is, right? Like personally, for Me, I would say probably caring about what others think of them, right? And that's something
Mm,
I've had to experience and have had to work with throughout my life. And I would say that's generational, but
yeah,
not coming until like coming into deep into this work. I didn't even realize I didn't feel good enough. And that's probably part
yeah,
of the reason, right?
yeah,
It's deep internal work, somatic processing. It's not
yeah.
just processing your emotions, it's really doing inner work.
Hmm.
And how can someone reconnect if their inner guide feels deeply hidden due to childhood emotional neglect?
Hmm. Yeah, the cloud analogy again. It's like it's always there. It really is always there. I think it starts with honesty and curiosity. So just sit with yourself. Why am why am I the way that I am? And shedding some light on your behaviors on the, and that's the cool thing is like these patterns, like yours was like um the pattern of your life has been like breaking that stigma around the weight of what people think of you, like that is a pattern that's resurfaced. And so then you're like, ooh, this deserves my attention. But what happens is like, and I think we heard this in our training of like, if a fan is always on, you just think it's normal. Eventually you get numb to the sound of the fan, right? And I think that's with like our childhood and everything. If that's all we've ever known, we don't really think to stop and question it, But I think once we start questioning everything, we get clearer to our true authentic self. And when, yeah, we get curious and honest with ourselves, that's when we can start clearing away the clouds and being like, oh, okay, this is actually who I am. And now I can see my childhood, I can see my past way clearer because I've questioned why is that fan on, Like just because it's always been there, or just because that's how you've always done something, or just because that's a tradition in your family, doesn't mean it always has to be. Does it actually align with you?
And why is it so important to feel grounded in a sense of calm and peace before listening to your inner guide, before making any decisions? How can we ground our nervous system and calm our mind?
Hmm.
And why is it important not to rush decisions, but to do deep internal reflection?
Hmm. So I would say, okay, let's take the example of moving to New Zealand. Um, I I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, Erin, but after leaving Canada, I really realized that Canada and the States do a very good job of teaching us that, like, this is such an amazing country and you probably don't need to ever leave it.
Okay.
Um, like, uh, I'd say my going through school and everything was very much like limited minded. Like, I lived in a small town, you do the same jobs, you just kind of like, you get married, you have kids, da da da. Like, that's a thing. Moving to New Zealand, I think the mindset here is very different. Like, you finish uni and you go, you travel, you explore, you go, like,
Okay.
you don't stay here, like, it's very encouraged to like go overseas. And so I had this moment where my friend moved to New Zealand and I was like, what? That's nuts. Like that was so bizarre to me. And then
And
she
then you
came
go
back.
and do it yourself.
Well, but like that didn't seem, that was never a possibility. That was
Okay.
never even a thought. Like no one in my life, no one in my family was big travelers, nothing, right? So I'm like, "Ooh, that's crazy." And then she'd come home once in a while for the summer, and I remember one time she came home one summer and she said, "Kae-Lynn, you should come. You should come and live in New Zealand." I'm like, "No." Like I love my life here. I have my family, I have my friends, I have my jobs that I love, da 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 da. So, not once did I calm my nervous system or ground into this decision. She planted a seed,
Mm.
and it kept on nagging at me. So she came during the summer in Canada, and in, I think it would have been a year before I was like, this nagging won't shut up. And so then I just asked myself, like, what if? What if I did go just for a month? And then she said, no, you have to get your working holiday visa if you come here, because you might as well work, you know?
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, okay, okay. So I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think that you have to. I don't think you have to be grounded. I don't think you have to do any of these things. I think it's probably best, like if you have a big decision, to sit with yourself. But to be honest, if I sat with myself and actually wrote out a pros and cons list,
Mhm.
my cons would have been way more than my pros, and I would not have went.
Okay.
I trusted this very scary thing that did dysregulate my nervous system,
Mhm.
but I knew I had to go. I felt it in my gut. And I convinced myself and everyone around me that it was only going to be for a month, because that's all my capacity was, is like,
Right.
I can do anything for a month. Like I can go, I have a safe place to go. I can stay there for a month. Guess what? 3 years later, here I am. And the people pleaser in me was like, there is no way I can leave these people behind. Everyone needs me. I am needed. I can't go. So then I told everyone I'm only going for a month, because that's what I truly felt. And I went there, and I'm not kidding. It was like experiencing my own death. Like, I know how morbid this sounds, but when you convince yourself that nobody can live without you, and you remove yourself and their worlds keep on spinning, you realize they actually can. It's just a very unhealthy dependence that you've built with these people. And I was depressed. And I realized that there's no more, um, yeah, I'm just done. There's no more living for other people. Like, I have to live for myself. So sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but to answer your question, if you have a very big decision coming up and you can't decide between this one or this one, please know that you can't get it wrong. Like, you really can't. And as hard as it is to make decisions, you will find your own way of trusting that. And if you haven't found your own way of trusting that, some things that I would suggest is, again, getting into that silence.
Mhm.
Um, and
Silence. Because if you're going, 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 and going and going and
yeah,
going, you're not going to be able to hear your internal guide. You won't. You won't be able to
yeah,
hear your authentic self. And this is something I've had to learn the hard way, but you won't.
yeah,
You're going to get burned yourself. You're
yeah.
going to hurt yourself. Um, and back to what you were saying too, it's interesting. I was just hearing you say that. My sister has a similar story. She went to Africa for 1 year to be an aid worker. And then after university, and then she said, I'm going to go for 1 more year. And then she came back for a little bit and said, I have to go back.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she's been there over 20 years. She's adopted
Beautiful.
a boy. She's now
Oh,
fostering a daughter. That's her daughter. Um, and she listened to her inner guide and like where it brought
yeah.
her, right? Um, so yes,
Yeah.
listening to your inner guide. And what advice can you give for people who have trauma, who were hypervigilant? How
Mm,
can they know to listen to their inner guide when they're feeling hypervigilance?
mm. So this, I just have an example for everything, but again, you got to remember that this is just my experience, and I truly think we we know we know how to navigate ourselves. We do. We're just so convinced that it has to look a certain way. You know, And when you so I'll give you an example. I was in the airport here in New Zealand because, like I said, I fell into a big depression. Like I moved to the promised land and I thought, oh, everything's going to be solved and I'm going to be so great and everything's going to be great. But no, I had to witness that's pretty much my own death. So it sounds so dramatic when I say that, but I was sad and I felt alone. And for the first time, I had to prioritize myself. I had to get honest with myself. And I'm like, what is the next best thing I can do? And to be honest, um, I thought, well, there's like this inner knowing that I needed to go to Bali. And I thought, that's insane. I don't have a job. I have barely any money, blah, 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 blah. But I was like, if it worked for Elizabeth Gilbert with Eat, Pray, Love, it's gonna work for me. So again, I'm gonna go. And I was in the airport about to fly to Bali, and I called one of my best friends and I said, I can't go. Like I'm actually having a panic attack. Like I think I'm gonna get on this plane and I'm gonna die. Like the plane is gonna go down. Like this is way too much for me. And so I was very like my nervous system was very active. Everything in my body told me not to go. But I forced myself to go because I could paid a lot of money for this ticket and I was like, just go. I had this inner knowing that I had to go to Bali, and there were so many signs that it kept on coming up that I trusted it. So I think that to answer your question, I think that you know, I think that when you are when we learn about the nervous system, we really learn that things need to be calm, we need to regulate, we need to find safety. And yes, when you are processing trauma and big things, yes, when you are taking leaps of faith outside of your life and outside of your comfort zone, it is not going to feel safe. It is not going to feel good. But when you do that, you build your capacity. And maybe I'm leading people in a different, in a, on like, it didn't feel safe for me anytime I took a big leap of faith. And that's very contradicting to what we learn. But in my true, honest opinion, that's how it felt for me. And you know what happened? I landed in Bali. I stayed there for a month with zero plan. And I just trusted the little whispers. And I had the most amazing experience of my lifetime. But my nervous system convinced me I was going to die. You know why? Because that felt so unbelievably unfamiliar. My nervous system was doing its job. That did not feel safe. It didn't feel safe to fly to New Zealand. It didn't feel safe to fly to Bali because this is so past my capacity. It was so past my limiting beliefs and my conditioning. But I did it. And you know what that proved to my nervous system? That it is safe to trust these inner whispers.
Okay. And what last advice do you have for everyone watching today?
Oh, well, I have something that I want to leave you guys with. Um, a few things. Uh, let me see. Uh, okay. I kind of talked about everything, which is great. Okay. My last advice for everyone here today would be to meet the journey of you with curiosity and have some fun. You know, instead of when opportunities come up, instead of saying I can't do that, ask yourself what if. You know, just
That's a
open
good question.
yourself
What
to
if?
what if, because the how is none of your business. The how I was going to navigate my life in New Zealand and Bali was none of my business. I just said, what if? What if I did do that? You know, what if I did travel to New Zealand? What if I did just apply for my working holiday visa? And things got approved. And I hope that by listening to this story, by listening to my advice and my story, that you're not like, okay, I have to buy a ticket to New Zealand and then I have to go to Bali. Like, no, 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 no. Everyone's journey is gonna look different. So just ask what if, and if things start falling into place for you, trust that. Like I said, what if I did leave this relationship? Bam, I have a house to live in. Okay, I can't deny that. Yes, it's scary, but it felt right. You know, what if I did travel to New Zealand? Bam, surprise money came, everything aligned, da 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 da. There were so many signs. Okay, you know, if I said, like, what if I packed up my life right now and moved to Africa? That doesn't feel right for me. I'm like, that's not right. So, you know, like, get curious and be honest with yourself. Um,
I like that.
and the other, yeah, yeah. And the other thing that I'd like to say is like, um, no matter what society tries to convince you of, you are not broken. Like when you believe you are not worthy and that you are broken, you make an amazing consumer. You will buy anything to fill that void. But once you realize that, like, you are not broken, you are not lost, your purpose is not outside of you, it's just a bit clouded right now, then you really start going inwards. You start building that relationship with yourself. You start building that trust. So please, 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 please just trust that you are not broken. And if you need some guidance with this, trust who you are called with too. Like just trust who you vibe with and trust the people that you don't vibe with. Honor that as well. I think that's it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for watching and joining in. And feel free to leave any comments below if you have any questions. And we will be leaving our contact information below. Feel free to contact us if you'd like a session or you have any questions. And I'll see you next week.